Right now, as you sit here, as you scroll through your day, as you breathe without thinking about breathing, there are 5 laws operating beneath everything you experience. 5 hidden principles running silently behind every relationship you attract, every opportunity you miss, every loop you keep falling into, every moment where you feel like something invisible is working against you. And here is what no one tells you. You are already using these laws every single day, every single moment, but you are using them in reverse. You are applying them unconsciously, automatically, and in almost every case against yourself. These are not new age fantasies. These are not motivational slogans designed to make you feel good for 15 minutes before you forget them. These are the same principles that ancient mystics encoded into sacred texts thousands of years ago. The same patterns that Nikola Tesla pointed toward when he said the secrets of the universe live in energy, frequency, and vibration. The same dynamics that quantum physicists stumbled into when they discovered that the act of observation literally changes the behavior of matter at its most fundamental level. And the reason your manifestations feel hollow, the reason you keep attracting the same types of people, the same financial ceilings, the same emotional loops, the reason you feel stuck even when you are doing everything you have been told to do, it all comes down to how you are engaging with these 5 laws without even realizing they exist. So let me ask you something, and I want you to actually pause with this question. Do not rush past it. What if the life you are living right now is not happening to you, but is being generated by you through a set of principles you were never taught to recognize? What if the invisible architecture of your reality has rules, and those rules have been hidden in plain sight for millennia, and the only reason you have not been able to use them is because every system you were raised inside, every institution, every cultural narrative, every educational framework was designed, whether intentionally or not, to keep you from seeing them. This is not conspiracy. This is not paranoia. This is pattern recognition at the deepest level. And by the time we reach the end of this conversation, you will not just understand these 5 laws intellectually. You will feel them operating in your body. You will recognize where you have been misapplying them. And you will know with a clarity that goes beyond thought exactly how to realign with them. Not through effort, not through force, but through a shift so fundamental that your external reality will have no choice but to reorganize itself around who you are becoming. Let us begin where all truth begins, not with answers, but with the willingness to question what you think you already know. Stop for a moment. Seriously. Pause whatever else is happening in your awareness and just look around you. Look at the room you are in, the walls, the furniture, the screen in front of you, your own hands. All of this seems real, does it not? Solid, concrete, unquestionable. You could knock on the table and hear the sound. You could press your fingers against the surface and feel resistance. Everything your senses report tells you that this is reality. Fixed, stable, objective, existing independently of you and your perception of it. But what if that is the first and most fundamental misunderstanding? What if the very solidity you trust, the very concreteness you build your life upon, is itself a kind of illusion? Not in the sense that it does not exist, but in the sense that it is not what you think it is, that it is an effect masquerading as a cause, a shadow pretending to be the thing that casts it. This is not a new idea. This is perhaps the oldest idea in human civilization. Over 2,400 years ago, a Greek philosopher named Plato sat down and wrote something in the 7th book of the Republic that would echo through every century that followed. He called it the allegory of the cave. The image is deceptively simple. A group of prisoners, chained since birth inside a dark cave, facing a blank wall. Behind them, a fire burns. Between the fire and the prisoners, objects pass back and forth, and the light from the fire casts shadows of those objects onto the wall. The prisoners watch these shadows their entire lives. They name them. They categorize them. They argue about their shapes, their movements, their meaning. And for these prisoners, the shadows are reality. It is all they have ever known. It is all they believe exists. Then one prisoner breaks free. He turns around. He sees the fire. He sees the objects. He stumbles out of the cave and into sunlight for the first time. And in that blinding, disorienting, terrifying moment, he realizes that everything he thought was real was a distorted, flattened, incomplete projection of something infinitely more vast. Now I want you to sit with that for a moment. Because Plato was not writing a children's story. He was not crafting a clever metaphor for a philosophy class. He was describing, in the language available to him at that time, the exact condition of human consciousness. He was saying that what we perceive through our senses is not the full picture, that there is a deeper reality operating behind the surface, and that most human beings live and die without ever turning around to see it. The shadows have changed shape since Plato's time. They are no longer flickering on a cave wall. Now they are glowing on screens. They arrive as notifications, as headlines, as social media feeds, as the endless stream of information that fills every waking moment. But the dynamic is identical. We stare at projections and call them reality. We organize our entire lives around shadows and never think to question the source of the light. And here is where it gets even more interesting. In 2003, a philosopher at Oxford University named Nick Bostrom published an academic paper asking a question that sounds like science fiction, but is grounded in pure logic and probability. The question was simply this: are we living in a computer simulation? His reasoning was not mystical. It was mathematical. If any civilization in the future develops enough computational power to simulate entire universes, complete with conscious beings inside them, then statistically, it becomes overwhelmingly more likely that we exist inside one of those simulations than in the one original base reality. Because for every base reality, there could be billions upon billions of simulated ones. The math alone makes it almost certain that any given conscious experience is simulated rather than original. Now hold both of these ideas together. Plato, 2,400 years ago, saying we mistake shadows for reality. Bostrom, in the 21st century, using logic and statistics to suggest the material world might literally be a computed projection. Separated by millennia, arising from completely different intellectual traditions, and yet pointing toward the same uncomfortable conclusion. Reality is not what it appears to be. There is something behind it, something deeper, something that involves the nature of consciousness itself. And if you travel east, to the ancient texts of India, to the Upanishads written around 800 BC, you find this same understanding expressed with even greater precision. They had a word for it: Maya, the veil of illusion. Maya does not mean the world is fake. It does not mean nothing exists. It means that what we perceive through our senses is a layer, a projection, a surface appearance that obscures a deeper truth. The material world is real in the way a dream is real while you are dreaming it. It has consistency. It has rules. It affects you. But it is not ultimate. It is not the source. It is the effect. And the cause, the source, the thing generating the projection, is consciousness itself. This is the foundation you need before we can talk about the 5 laws. Because if you approach these laws while still believing that the physical world is primary, that matter creates consciousness, that you are a body having thoughts, you will misunderstand everything that follows. You will try to use these laws the way you use tools in the physical world, through effort, through force, through manipulation of external conditions. And that is precisely how you have been using them in reverse. The 5 laws I am about to share with you are not tools for manipulating the physical world. They are the operating principles of consciousness itself. They are the source code behind the projection. And when you align with them, you do not force reality to change. You change the signal that reality is reflecting. The projection shifts because the projector shifts. The shadows transform because you finally turn around and face the light. If this is already shifting something in you, if you can feel these ideas landing deeper than the surface, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel so you do not miss what comes next. Let us enter the first law. There is an ancient phrase so old that no one can trace it to a single origin that has appeared in virtually every wisdom tradition on earth. As above, so below. As within, so without. This is the law of correspondence. And it is the first hidden law that is operating in your life right now, whether you recognize it or not. The earliest known articulation of this principle comes from the Hermetic tradition, attributed to a figure called Hermes Trismegistus, a legendary being who represents the merging of the Greek god Hermes with the Egyptian god Thoth. Whether this figure was a real person, a mythological symbol, or something in between does not matter. What matters is what the texts attributed to him contain. The Hermetic writings influenced Greek philosophy, medieval alchemy, Renaissance thought, and virtually every esoteric tradition that followed. And at the heart of all of it sits this single principle: correspondence. The outer reflects the inner. The macrocosm mirrors the microcosm. What you experience in your external world is not random. It is a direct reflection of what is happening inside you. In 1908, a book called The Kybalion was published. The authors identified themselves only as 3 initiates. To this day, their true identity remains uncertain, though many attribute the work to William Walker Atkinson. The book presents 7 Hermetic principles, and the second of these is the principle of correspondence. The exact phrase is as above, so below, as within, so without, and the book explains it clearly. Your external world is a mirror. What you experience in relationships, in your career, in your health, in your finances, none of it is accidental. It is a correspondence, a reflection, an echo of your dominant internal state, your deepest beliefs, your most persistent emotional patterns, the things you feel about yourself when no one is watching and no performance is required. Now here is where most people go wrong with this law. They hear it and they think it means think positive and good things will happen. That is not what this law says. This law says that your reality corresponds to your state of being, not your wishes, not your affirmations, not the vision board on your wall, your state of being. The frequency you are actually operating at beneath all the surface-level attempts to be positive. And this is why so many people try to manifest and fail. They paste a smile over anxiety. They repeat affirmations while their body is clenched with fear. They visualize abundance while every cell in their being vibrates with scarcity. And the law of correspondence does not respond to your words. It responds to your signal. It reflects what you are, not what you say you want to be. Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists in history, discovered this same principle operating in the human psyche. He called it projection. Jung observed across thousands of patients over decades of clinical work that human beings project onto the external world what they cannot recognize within themselves. If you carry unresolved anger, you will perceive hostility everywhere. If you hold deep insecurity, you will interpret neutral situations as threats. If you believe you are unworthy of love, you will find evidence of rejection in every interaction, even in the ones where love is being offered to you. The world becomes a screen, and the projector is inside your own consciousness. Jung was not speaking mystically. He was describing clinical observation, documented psychological patterns. And yet what he described aligns perfectly with what the Hermetic tradition taught thousands of years before him. Inside and outside are not separate domains. They are reflections of each other, mirrors facing mirrors, creating the illusion of an independent external world, when in truth, the external is always and only a correspondence to the internal. And neuroscience has added yet another layer to this understanding. There is a well-documented cognitive pattern called confirmation bias. Your brain does not process reality neutrally. It cannot. The sheer volume of sensory data arriving at your nervous system every second is so overwhelming that your brain must filter. It must select. And the criterion it uses for selection is what you already believe. If you believe the world is dangerous, your reticular activating system will highlight every piece of evidence that confirms danger and suppress everything that contradicts it. You will remember the one piece of bad news and forget the 10 pieces of good news. You will notice the person who frowned at you and completely miss the 20 people who smiled. You are literally constructing your experience of reality based on the beliefs already programmed inside you. This is not metaphysics. This is neurology. So let that land for a moment. Between Hermetic philosophy, Jungian psychology, and modern neuroscience, the same principle keeps appearing. Your inner world generates your outer experience, not metaphorically, not symbolically, functionally. The law of correspondence is operating in your life right now. The question is not whether it is active. The question is what it is reflecting. And this is where a mystic named Neville Goddard took the principle further than almost anyone before or since. Neville, born in Barbados in 1905, taught something so radical and so direct that it still disturbs people today. He said the three-dimensional physical world, everything you can see and touch and measure, is a shadow, a reflection, an echo. And the real reality, the causal reality, is human imagination, not thought. Imagination, specifically feeling. In his book Feeling is the Secret, published in 1944, Neville made the distinction crystal clear. It is not what you think that shapes your reality. It is what you feel. When you internally assume the emotional state of something already accomplished, when you feel the reality of your desire as though it has already manifested, the external world reorganizes itself to correspond to that internal state. He did not ask people to think positive. He asked them to feel as if. Because feeling, according to Neville, is the language that reality understands. It is the signal that the law of correspondence reads and reflects. And I want you to check this against your own experience right now. Think about a time in your life when you were deeply afraid of something, when you carried a persistent feeling of dread or anxiety about a particular outcome. Did that outcome tend to manifest? Think about a time when you felt genuinely confident, genuinely at peace, genuinely certain that things would work out. Did your external experience tend to reflect that state? This is not about blame. This is about recognition. The law of correspondence is not punishing you. It is reflecting you. And the moment you recognize that, everything changes. Because you stop trying to fix the mirror and start adjusting the source. I want to hear from you on this. When was the first time you noticed your outer world perfectly mirroring something you were carrying inside? A fear, a belief, an expectation you did not even realize you held. Share that moment in the comments below. Breathe into that for a moment. Let it settle, because we are about to go deeper. The second hidden law is the law of vibration, and this one dismantles the most basic assumption you carry about the nature of physical reality. You are sitting somewhere right now, perhaps in a chair, perhaps on a bed, perhaps on the floor. Whatever surface supports you feels solid. Your body feels dense. The objects around you feel fixed and stable. Everything your senses report tells you that the physical world is made of solid, still, unchanging stuff. But it is not. At the atomic level, at the subatomic level, at the most fundamental layer of what we call matter, nothing is still. Nothing. Not a single atom, not a single particle. Everything that exists is in constant motion, constant vibration. The chair beneath you is vibrating. The walls around you are vibrating. The screen in front of you is vibrating. Your body, your bones, your blood, your brain, all of it is vibrating at specific frequencies. There is no solid matter anywhere in the universe. There is only energy vibrating at different rates. And the difference between something you can see and something you cannot, between something that feels solid and something that feels like empty space, is not a difference of substance. It is a difference of frequency. This is what any physics textbook will tell you. But the Hermetic tradition said it first. The Kybalion states it as the third principle. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. The difference between matter and energy, between the visible and the invisible, between the dense and the subtle, is purely a difference of vibrational rate. A rock vibrates at a low, slow frequency. A thought vibrates at a high, fast frequency. But both are vibrations. Both are energy in motion. Both exist on the same spectrum. And when you bring this understanding into the realm of human emotion, something extraordinary begins to reveal itself. Dr. David Hawkins, an American psychiatrist who spent decades researching the relationship between emotional states and levels of consciousness, published a book in 1995 called Power versus Force. In it, he presented what he called the map of consciousness, a scale ranging from 20 to over 700. At the bottom of the scale sit emotions like shame, guilt, apathy, grief, and fear. At the top sit courage, acceptance, love, joy, peace, and enlightenment. And according to Hawkins, each of these emotional states corresponds to a measurable frequency. The lower the emotion, the denser, heavier, and more contracted the experience of life. The higher the emotion, the more expanded, fluid, and creative the experience becomes. Now, I want to be transparent with you. Hawkins's methodology, which was based on applied kinesiology, a form of muscle testing, is controversial in mainstream science. Not everyone accepts it, and intellectual honesty requires acknowledging that. But the underlying principle that emotions carry frequency, that different emotional states create different qualities of experience, that how you feel literally determines the vibrational signature you broadcast into the field of reality. This principle is not isolated to Hawkins. It appears everywhere. Think about the quote attributed to Nikola Tesla. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Tesla, the Serbian-American genius who gave us alternating current, who understood electromagnetic fields at a level that still astounds engineers today, who saw the universe not as a collection of solid objects, but as an ocean of interacting frequencies. Whether or not he spoke those exact words, the thinking is entirely consistent with everything he demonstrated through his work. The universe is not made of things. It is made of frequencies. And you are not a thing. You are a frequency. And here is where most people use the law of vibration in reverse. They try to change their external circumstances first, believing that once the circumstances improve, their internal state will shift. They think if I get the job, then I will feel confident. If I find the relationship, then I will feel loved. If I make the money, then I will feel abundant. But the law of vibration says it works the other way. Your frequency comes first. Your emotional state is the broadcast signal, and reality organizes itself around that signal. You do not get the thing and then feel the feeling. You embody the feeling, and then the thing that corresponds to that frequency finds its way to you. This is not wishful thinking. This is the same principle that governs resonance in physics. When you strike a tuning fork at a specific frequency, and hold it near another tuning fork of the same frequency, the second fork begins to vibrate without being touched. This is called sympathetic resonance, and it operates at every level of reality. Your emotional frequency is a tuning fork, and the experiences, people, and circumstances that share that frequency will naturally resonate with you. They will be drawn into your field, not through effort, not through force, through correspondence, through vibration. So the question becomes not what do I need to do to change my life, but what frequency am I currently broadcasting? What emotional state am I living in most of the time? Not the state I perform for others, not the state I try to maintain on the surface, the real one. The one that runs when I am alone. The one that operates in the background of my awareness like a constant hum. Because that hum is your vibrational signature. And reality is always, always, always responding to it. Pause with that. Feel it in your body. Notice where you carry tension right now. Notice what emotion lives beneath your thoughts when you stop thinking and just feel. That is your current frequency. That is what the law of vibration is reflecting back to you as your life. What we have explored so far, the law of correspondence and the law of vibration, only begins to touch the surface of how these frequencies shape every dimension of your experience. If you are feeling the depth of this and want the complete system for moving from unconscious broadcasting to conscious transmission, for understanding the 9 master frequencies and learning to shift from survival static into ascending currents of effortless creation. You will find everything laid out step by step in my book, Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery. It is linked in the pinned comment below. Now we arrive at the 3rd hidden law, and this is the one that tends to disturb people the most, because it directly challenges the assumption that you are a passive observer of an independent reality. This is the law of mentalism, and it states, in its most distilled form, that the universe is mental, that consciousness is not a byproduct of matter, that matter is a byproduct of consciousness. The Kybalion presents this as the first and most fundamental of all the Hermetic principles. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Everything that exists, every form, every phenomenon, every experience, arises within and from consciousness, not the other way around. The mainstream scientific worldview tells you that matter came first, that the physical universe existed for billions of years, and that at some point, through some process no one can fully explain, matter became complex enough to produce consciousness. Atoms arranged themselves into molecules, molecules into cells, cells into brains, and brains somehow generated awareness. This is called the materialist paradigm, and it is the unquestioned assumption behind virtually everything you were taught in school. But here's the problem. No one has ever explained how matter produces consciousness. It is called the hard problem of consciousness, a term coined by philosopher David Chalmers in 1995. And after decades of research, after billions of dollars spent on neuroscience, after mapping the brain in extraordinary detail, the hard problem remains completely unsolved. We can correlate brain activity with conscious experience. We can see which neurons fire when you feel love or fear or joy. But correlation is not causation. Seeing that the brain lights up when you have an experience does not prove the brain creates the experience. It only proves they are connected. And the direction of that connection, whether brain creates mind or mind expresses through brain, remains an open question. The Hermetic tradition answers that question directly. Mind is primary. Consciousness is the ground of all being. The physical world arises within consciousness, the way a dream arises within the mind of the dreamer. The dream feels real while you are in it. It has rules, consistency, cause and effect. But when you wake up, you realize the entire thing was generated by your own awareness. And quantum physics, perhaps without meaning to, has provided some of the most compelling evidence for this view. Return to the double-slit experiment. When subatomic particles are fired at 2 slits with no measurement, no observation, they behave like waves. They pass through both slits simultaneously. They create an interference pattern. They exist in a state of pure potential, spread across multiple possibilities at once. But the moment a detector is placed to observe which slit the particle passes through, the wave function collapses. The particle chooses one path. It behaves like a solid object. The interference pattern disappears. Let the implications of that settle into you. At the most fundamental level of physical reality, matter does not exist in a definite state until it is observed. The act of observation, the presence of consciousness, is what causes potential to become actual. The particle does not decide on its own. It responds to the observer. It responds to you. Now, the mainstream interpretation of quantum mechanics tries to avoid the implications of this. Many physicists will tell you that observation in quantum mechanics does not mean conscious observation, that it simply means interaction with a measuring device. And that is a valid technical point, but it does not resolve the deeper question. Because what is a measuring device except another arrangement of particles that are themselves in superposition until observed? The chain of observation has to terminate somewhere. And the only place it can terminate, the only thing that is not itself a quantum system requiring observation, is consciousness. This is what Nobel Prize-winning physicist Eugene Wigner argued. This is what John von Neumann, one of the greatest mathematicians of the 20th century, concluded in his mathematical formulation of quantum mechanics. Consciousness is not a passive witness to a pre-existing reality. Consciousness is the active ingredient that collapses possibility into actuality. Consciousness is what makes the world real. And if that is true, if consciousness is primary, if the universe is mental, then the implications for your life are staggering, because it means that the reality you experience is not something happening to you from outside. It is something being generated through you from inside. Your consciousness is not watching reality. Your consciousness is creating reality. And the patterns you see repeating in your life, the loops, the cycles, the frustrating recurrences, they are not evidence that the world is against you. They are evidence that your consciousness is running the same program over and over, and the law of mentalism is faithfully executing that program as your lived experience. This is where the first three laws begin to weave together. Correspondence says your outer world reflects your inner world. Vibration says your emotional frequency determines what you attract. Mentalism says consciousness itself is the creative force behind all of it. Together, they paint a picture so clear it is almost impossible to ignore. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the author of them, not at the level of your conscious mind, not through your daily thoughts and surface-level intentions, but at the level of your deepest beliefs, your most persistent emotional states, your fundamental assumptions about who you are and what reality is. That is where the signal originates. That is what the laws are reflecting. Here is what I want to know from you. Which of these three laws, correspondence, vibration, or mentalism, hit you the hardest just now? Which one made you see a pattern in your life you had never connected before? Tell me in the comments. And this brings us to the fourth hidden law, which explains why change feels so difficult, even when you understand everything I have just described. This is the law of rhythm, and it is perhaps the most misunderstood of all. The Kabbalion states it this way: everything flows, out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. In nature, this law is obvious. Day follows night. Summer follows winter. The tide comes in and the tide goes out. The moon waxes and wanes. Every living system pulses between expansion and contraction, between activity and rest, between growth and integration. This is not a flaw in the system. This is the system. Rhythm is how the universe breathes. But in human life, we resist rhythm with everything we have. We want constant growth, constant progress, constant expansion. We want to feel good all the time. We want momentum to never slow. We want the upswing without the downswing. And when the inevitable contraction comes, When energy dips, when motivation fades, when life seems to pull back, we panic. We think something is wrong. We think we have failed. We think the laws have stopped working. We think we have lost our frequency, our alignment, our connection to source. But nothing has gone wrong. The pendulum has simply swung. And it must swing. It always swings. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. This means that the higher you rise, the deeper you will be pulled in the opposite direction. Not as punishment, as balance, as rhythm, as the natural breathing of existence. And here is how most people use this law in reverse. When they are in an expansion phase, when things are going well, when energy is high and manifestations are flowing, they attach to it. They cling. They identify with the high. They think, this is who I really am. This is my true frequency. This must never change. And then when the contraction comes, as it must, they collapse. They lose faith. They abandon their practices. They tell themselves it was all an illusion, that none of it was real, that they were fooling themselves. And in that collapse, in that resistance to the natural downswing, they amplify the contraction. They make it worse. They turn a natural rhythm into a crisis. The master, the one who truly understands these laws, does not resist the rhythm. The master rides it. When expansion comes, the master enjoys it without clinging. When contraction comes, the master allows it without resisting. The master knows that the downswing is not the end of the upswing. It is the preparation for the next one. The contraction is where integration happens. It is where the lessons of the expansion are absorbed into the body, into the nervous system, into the deeper layers of being. Without contraction, expansion has no foundation. Without rest, growth has no root. Think about your own life. Think about the times when everything seemed to fall apart, when relationships ended, when jobs were lost, when health declined, when you hit what felt like rock bottom. And then think about what emerged from those contractions. New understanding, new direction, new strength that could not have been forged any other way. The contraction was not your enemy. It was the law of rhythm doing exactly what it does, preparing the ground for the next expansion. So if you are in a contraction right now, if life feels heavy, if energy feels low, if nothing seems to be working, hear this: you are not broken. You are not failing. You are not losing your alignment. You are in the downswing of a natural rhythm. And your only task, your only real task, is to not resist it, to breathe into it, to trust it, to let it do its work. Because the upswing is already contained within the downswing, the way the inhale is already contained within the exhale. You do not have to create it. You only have to stop blocking it. And that understanding, that willingness to move with rhythm rather than against it, is what separates those who transform from those who remain stuck in the same loops forever. The loops are not evidence of failure. They are evidence of rhythm. And rhythm, properly understood, is not a trap. It is a spiral. Each cycle brings you back to what appears to be the same place, but you are not the same. You are deeper. You are wider. You are more aware. The spiral only looks like a circle from the outside. From the inside, it is always ascending. Now we arrive at the fifth and final hidden law. And in many ways, this is the one that ties all the others together. This is the law of cause and effect, but not the version you were taught. The conventional understanding of cause and effect is linear. Something happens, and then something else happens as a result. You push a ball, it rolls. You plant a seed, it grows. Action produces reaction. Cause precedes effect in a straight line through time. And at the level of physical mechanics, this is accurate enough. But at the level of consciousness, at the level where these 5 laws operate, cause and effect works very differently. The Kabbalion states it this way: every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. That last part is the key. There are many planes of causation. This means that not all causes operate on the physical plane. In fact, the most powerful causes, the ones that generate the most significant effects in your life, operate on planes you cannot see. They operate on the mental plane, the emotional plane, the plane of belief, the plane of identity. The physical event that you experience as an effect, the job loss, the diagnosis, the unexpected encounter, the sudden opportunity, these are effects. But their causes did not originate in the physical world. Their causes originated in consciousness, in the invisible architecture of your inner world. And this is where the law of cause and effect intersects with everything we have discussed. The law of correspondence says your outer world reflects your inner world. The law of vibration says your frequency determines what you attract. The law of mentalism says consciousness is the creative force. The law of rhythm says everything moves in cycles. And the law of cause and effect says that the true causes of your experience are not external events but internal states. Your beliefs are causes. Your emotions are causes. Your assumptions about who you are and what is possible for you, these are the causes that generate the effects you call your life. And here is where people use this law most devastatingly in reverse. They look at their current circumstances, their current reality, the effects that have already manifested, and they use those effects as evidence for what is true. They see lack and conclude, I am poor. They see rejection and conclude, I am unlovable. They see failure and conclude, I am incapable. They take the effect and turn it into a cause. They let the reflection define the source. And in doing so, they create a closed loop. The belief creates the reality. The reality reinforces the belief. The belief creates more of the same reality. And round it goes, a self-fulfilling prophecy that feels like fate but is actually just the law of cause and effect operating perfectly, reflecting back the causes that were set in motion on the invisible planes of consciousness. Breaking this loop requires something that sounds simple, but is one of the most challenging things a human being can do. It requires you to stop taking your current reality as evidence of truth. It requires you to look at the effects in your life and instead of saying, this is just how things are, to ask what belief, what emotional state, what assumption about myself created this? And then, instead of trying to change the effect directly, to change the cause, to shift the belief, to alter the emotional state, to assume a new identity at the level of feeling, not thought. This is what Neville Goddard meant when he said, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. He was not asking you to pretend. He was not asking you to deny your current circumstances. He was asking you to recognize that your current circumstances are effects, and that by changing the cause, by assuming a new internal state, by feeling the reality of what you desire as though it has already manifested, you set a new cause in motion on the invisible plane. And the law of cause and effect, operating as it always does, will produce new effects that correspond to that new cause. This is not magic, this is law. The same law that kept you stuck is the law that sets you free. The same principle that created the loop is the principle that breaks it. Nothing changes in the mechanics. What changes is your awareness of the mechanics. What changes is where you place the cause. So let us bring all 5 laws together now and feel how they operate as a single unified system. The law of mentalism tells you that consciousness is primary, that the universe is mental, that your awareness is not a passive witness, but an active creator. Everything begins in mind. The law of correspondence tells you that your external reality mirrors your internal state. What you see around you is a reflection of what lives within you. Change the inner and the outer must follow. The law of vibration tells you that everything is frequency. Your emotions, your beliefs, your state of being, all of it broadcasts a vibrational signal, and reality responds to that signal with mathematical precision, drawing to you whatever matches your frequency. The law of rhythm tells you that everything moves in cycles. Expansion and contraction, rise and fall, growth and integration. Resistance to the rhythm creates suffering. Alignment with the rhythm creates flow. The law of cause and effect tells you that the true causes of your experience are not external events, but internal states. Your beliefs, your emotions, your identity. These are the causes. Everything else is effect. Together, these 5 laws describe a reality that is far more responsive, far more intelligent, far more intimately connected to your consciousness than anything you were taught to believe. They describe a universe that is not happening to you, but through you. A reality that is not fixed, but fluid. A life that is not determined by circumstance, but generated by awareness. And you have been using all 5 of these laws every single day of your life. The question has never been whether they are active. They are always active. The question is whether you are using them consciously or unconsciously. Whether you are directing them with intention or defaulting to the programming you absorbed from a world that never taught you they existed. Now I want you to do something. Not later, not tomorrow. Right now, in this moment, I want you to close your eyes if you can. And I want you to take one slow, deep breath. Feel your body. Feel the weight of it. Feel the aliveness in it. Feel the subtle vibration that is always present when you pay attention. And as you breathe, I want you to ask yourself one question, not with your mind, with your whole being. What have I been assuming about myself that is creating the reality I no longer want? Do not rush to answer. Do not analyze. Just let the question sit in your awareness like a stone dropped into still water. Let the ripples move. Let whatever arises arise. It might be a word. It might be an image. It might be a feeling. It might be nothing at first. That is fine. The question is the practice. The willingness to ask is the shift, because here is the deepest truth embedded in all 5 laws. You do not need to acquire anything to transform your life. You do not need more information. You do not need a better strategy. You do not need different circumstances. You need to become aware of what you are already doing. You need to see the program that is already running. You need to recognize the beliefs that are already creating. And in that recognition, in that moment of pure awareness, the program begins to change. Not through effort, through seeing, through consciousness becoming conscious of itself. This is what the mystics meant. This is what the philosophers pointed toward. This is what the quantum physicists accidentally discovered. Consciousness is not separate from reality. Consciousness is reality, and when consciousness shifts, reality shifts. Not eventually, not after enough repetitions. Now, in this moment, in the only moment that actually exists. The 5 laws are not something you need to learn. They are something you need to remember. They have been operating your entire life. They have been creating every experience you have ever had, and they will continue to create, with or without your conscious participation. The only difference, the difference that changed everything, is whether you are awake to them or asleep within them. And if you have made it this far, if something in these words has resonated not just in your mind, but in your body, in that place beneath thought where knowing lives, then you are already waking up. You are already turning around in the cave. You are already beginning to see that the shadows were never the whole story. Consider listening to this again tomorrow morning, before the noise of the day sets in, and let these 5 laws become the lens through which you move through every moment. And if someone in your life is stuck in the same loops, the same patterns, the same invisible ceilings, send them this video. When you share this understanding, you activate it more deeply within yourself, because teaching is the highest form of learning. And the signal you broadcast by spreading this awareness creates a resonance that accelerates the shift for both of you. The invitation now is simple. Do not go back to sleep. Do not let the noise of the world drown out what you have just recognized. Carry this awareness into your next hour, into your next conversation, into the next moment where you catch yourself reacting from old programming. And in that moment, pause, breathe. Remember, you are not the effect. You are the cause. You are not the reflection. You are the source. You are not the shadow on the wall. You are the light. And the 5 laws, the hidden laws that have been running your reality since before you were born, they are not your prison. They are your instrument. They are the strings of an instrument that has always been yours. And now that you can see them, now that you can feel them, the only question remaining is, what will you play? Take one more breath. Let everything we have explored settle into your body, not as information to be stored in your mind, but as recognition to be felt in your being. You already knew this. Somewhere beneath the conditioning, beneath the noise, beneath the forgetting, you already knew. These laws were never hidden from you. You were hidden from them, and now the veil is thinner than it has ever been. If this landed somewhere real in you, if you felt even one moment where the words disappeared and something deeper opened, leave a single word in the comments. Just one word that captures what you felt, not what you thought, what you felt. Because that word, that frequency, that signal is the beginning of a new cause. And the law of cause and effect will do the rest. Stay in this frequency. Stay awake. And remember, reality was never something you needed to escape. It was something you needed to understand. And now you do, now take this deeper. Watch forbidden metaphysics. Only 1% of people are ready to understand. This ancient wisdom because it reveals the ancient knowledge systems behind these 5 laws, the source traditions most people never access. And it will show you exactly why this understanding was kept hidden and how to use it at an even more precise level.